You know, it actually amazes me just how much some people will just prove everything you've ever said about them correct without you even having to do anything. They just sort of do it on their own. Such is the case with MCLRapper, aka MCLRapper. Well, ever since the Soup Party guys call him that, and now he just goes by that name despite being MCL for, well, a decade. And legally known as Lance Renee, Lance has had a pretty busy week basically trying to take what little doubt anyone would have had about him and blasting it into oblivion. It started last week when apparently he was either approached or sought out. I believe he was approached, I don't know exactly, but he seemingly formed an alliance with Stetson Hardwick. Yes, that Stetson Hardwick. And the two of them made a podcast in which Lance hosted this paedophilia and rape advocate on his show and let him talk endlessly without challenging him once. He even admitted in the painfully long introduction that he found some of the stuff that Stetson was saying to be a bit sketchy, but he wasn't going to challenge it because the rest of the narrative fed into his. So he was more than willing to put this pro paedophilia, pro bestiality, pro rape advocate who honestly believes that everyone who's ever done a sex crime ever should just be released from prison, and has even published books that say, and I quote verbatim, that the rights of quote unquote pedosexuals, aka pedophiles, should come above children. This is literally the man that Lance Renee gave a microphone to without any form of scrutiny and let talk for a solid hour and did not remotely challenge or question a single thing he said. So I could have basically just reported that as a story on its own and it would have been hilarious. But I instead, because I'm really nice, like really, really nice to the point where it's sickening, I decided to reach out to Lance and basically inform him just who he was interviewing last week. I told him all about uh, Stetson's books. I told him about the things that Stetson said and done. I showed a bunch of the things that I can prove right off the bat. And Lance said to every single one of them, they're disgusting, they're this, they're that. He was genuinely horrified at the shit that he'd seen. Lance then invited me to talk about this more, well, just more on his podcast. I declined. And I basically just said that I don't really want to go on a show which gives proud pedophile supporters an unchallenged platform to slander my friends with a host of justifying it as just cause. Yes, this was actually Lance's reasoning for giving this nonce a platform. Just cause it's, like I don't know, like he's just chugging something. It's not like he's actually going to cause harm by doing this. Let's just let it happen. It's hilarious to me as well that he's been complaining about the fact that people get mad at him about his association with Nathan Larson, and then like less than 5 years later, he's doing the exact same thing again. He's learned absolutely nothing. So that's what I said. And I actually have that podcast downloaded and I've actually re uploaded it to my Odyssey channel. Lance is fully on board with this because he says that if you basically take somebody's content and re upload it to your own platform, that is sharing and not stealing. He's actually said this in his podcast, but I call it archiving because Lance is very likely going to delete this podcast once I basically make this video. So I'm not bothering linking the official podcast. I might link the official version of it above my Odyssey, but let's face it, my Odyssey version is going to stand, his isn't. He's probably going to delete it the second that things turn ugly, or in a few years when things don't go his way, so he decides to nuke his entire platform. Then Lance says that if his, I think it was a stereo app post, which basically asked if he should do a podcast with me, gets 100 views, I am somehow obligated to go on his shitty podcast with him. I said, well, no, I'm really not. To which he said, yes, you are. And that was the beginning of where this shit gets even weirder. Because I wouldn't go on Nonce FM with Lance, um, I said that I'm not going to associate with him, even ironically. And he says, "You're going on. Regardless of what you say, you are going on. There is no backing out of this one, buddy." Now, I'd have to agree to something to back out of it, but Lance is an idiot, so he doesn't quite understand what he's saying. Um, I basically told him that I have no idea how he's going to make that happen. He can't physically force me to go on his crap podcast. He can't even contractually obligate me to because I haven't signed a contract. He then brings up my stereo profile and says that he will ring it. I told him I won't answer. Then he said he'll spam call me until I pick up. I said, well, that doesn't really matter to me because I don't have stereo enabled from 1 month to another. I think the last time I used it was nearly a year ago now, maybe even longer than that. And then he said he'll send me links, and I told him I'm not going to click on any of them because I have no interest in his crap podcast. And basically, he said that he would basically harass me to the point where I would just cave and go on his crap podcast. And yeah, that's where we're at. Lance, despite the fact that he's been accused of this multiple times, has basically shown his hand. The dude is a serial harasser, and he has given a nonce a open platform to say whatever degenerate shit he wants, and Lance has had absolutely no inkling to stop it or question it or argue against it. He literally has just sat there and let it happen. Lance has then threatened someone because they will not then add to this absolute degeneracy using what little time they have. Bearing in mind as well, even if I wanted to do this, I don't have time. I've turned people like Gage down for projects recently, which need me to be awake all night because I can't do it right now. I've just not got the time. I've just not got the energy to stay up all weekend, every night from 11 o'clock to like 5 a.m. to record videos and podcasts. I just don't have it in me when I've got a work week where I'm required to work like, I don't know how many hours shifts. I think it's like a good 7, 8 hour shift. So yeah, doing that every day, I just don't have the time, energy, or even the will and drive. Even if you get me on there, I'm not going to be at my best. And he won't accept that because it's not what he wants to hear. Lance then deleted every single message on his end because he saw that I screenshot all of the messages. And I told him I was basically going to make this video. I told him I was going to add it to the documentary, but I was also going to make this video. Lance then goes to his podcast. He made a podcast called He's Got Nothing to Work With, to which Lance basically confessed that he deleted all of his message on his end, and well, he wants to make me look stupid by doing so. It's probably going to look a bit suspicious, though, with a one-sided conversation regardless, but I did screenshot everything that Lance was saying as it happened. The idiot also thinks that because he deleted shit before I could even read it, because that's how conversations can happen now, that I don't get a chance to screenshot it. Unfortunately for him, there's an invention called video recorder, which basically just allows me to record shit happening in real time. So nice going, Lance, you absolute. Sorry, I did say I wasn't going to be too mean, but YouTube moderators, if they are going to complain that I called this guy crap. I'm happy. I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. And basically, to round it off, Lance basically did a 3-minute long monologue about how his evil genius plan is going to make me look stupid and how he's going to look totally brilliant and what have you. And it's beyond idiotic that he did that. Because now I'm just going to play it for you in full, and everyone's going to be able to see what kind of awful person he is. This is Lance. This is his true face that I'll play out for you right now.
I said I was going to spam call him several times, but he's never going to pick up. And I know it. It's a psychological game that he's playing. That's what it is. I think his type of deal is not to pick up because he doesn't want to talk with me or be on my show. I know that. I'm screwing around with him. Then I delete every message. That's what I did. He probably got the screenshots, but I delete the messages to make him look like an idiot. That's what I did. So he's got nothing to work with. Maybe make shit up or something. But he's gonna have a hard time because I'm never gonna message him again. You know, if I do end up messaging him, then just remember, delete the message. That's what I gotta do. That's what I gotta do. Delete my messages and make him look like an idiot. That's the whole purpose. But of course, he's probably got screenshots, like really quick, you know, because my messages stayed there, you know. If I didn't delete my message in time, then he's got evidence of me harassing him. Big whoop. But we'll see how this turns out. If I could try to get him on the show. Of course, he'll never come on the show because he has his own reasoning for it. I tried messing around with him a little bit. But I guess he doesn't understand. He just thinks I'm a nobody, you know. But we all know what we're talking about here. I'm just making this episode so we could put in this documentary, but it'd be pointless. It'd be very pointless because he's got nothing to work with. He may have some older stuff from the past to start out with, but once he gets down to the 2023 stuff, there's going to be nothing because I delete my messages just in time, I think. Or maybe he screenshot it quick. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see where this goes. And I could put his documentary onto my show like I did Gage's video. You know, they call it stealing, but I call it sharing. There's a difference.
So after Lance finished with this pathetic display, he basically then decided to fall back on one of his old tactics of pretending that he has memory problems, he has a brain problem, and he can't remember any of the things he did. Well, I hate to say it, but just because you can't remember shit doesn't mean you didn't do it, and it also doesn't mean that you are not responsible for your own actions. If you choose to do something in that moment, whether you remember it 10 minutes after or not, you chose to do it. You weren't possessed. There is very little to no excuse I will accept where a person is not responsible for their own actions. And Lance is the king of absolute pathetic excuses when it comes to not being responsible for his own decided, well thought out actions. Well, when I say well thought out, I mean he well thought out what he wanted to happen and what he wanted to do. It's just he didn't think about the part where he actually makes it work. To wrap up, I'm just baffled by this man's display. I am a bit tired of people doubting and people just taking his word for it. I'm hoping this will put people straight who dare to actually argue with me and say, no, Lance can't be these things. No, Lance is these things. Only a complete moron would say otherwise after this. This is everything we've said Lance is for years. And yet, for some reason, people still want to give him that benefit of the doubt. I don't know why. Here you go. Here's your proof. This is exactly what Lance is, and this is what he does to everyone. I honestly can't wait to bury Lance with the documentary I'm working on. I've been working on it for a while now, and I've been on and off. I'm hoping to finish it by the end of the year and then never look at Lance's pathetic, ugly face ever again.